Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Otter Creek Garage. So in front of me here, I have one of my modified pull tractors that everyone has affectionately called Bob. I'm not 100% sure why they started calling it that, but it's sort of stuck, and that's what everyone calls it now. So we're going to go with that. Before we go too far, if you're interested in seeing Bob go for a rip, head on over to my other YouTube channel, H&S Pulling. There's lots of videos of Bob with me on it and other people as well. You get to see him make lots of noise and stir up some dirt. But we have a little bit of work to do. Bob needs some steering modifications, and I want to speed up the drive a little bit. I can pull this in second gear and still hit the rev limiter on the engine fairly quickly, so that tells me I have a little bit more. I can speed it up a little bit more, get a little more momentum. So we're going to be working on that today. So let's get into it. So I've taken the liberty of removing some of the guarding here already to expose my chain drive, but I'm going to need to get a little bit more off in order to be able to count the teeth, what I need, so I know what I need to order here. I'm going to have to actually remove that whole thing, and I'll show you later why. I'm going to have to expose a little bit more of this, so I'm going to set you guys up on the tripod, and I'm going to go to it. Guys, we're back here. We got our jack shaft out and on the bench. I'll bring you over for a closer look here. So I had to cut it to get it out. Well, I could have got it out without cutting it, but I have to cut it anyways. These sprockets are welded on. And you might be asking yourself, why did you weld them on instead of keying them? So the very first modified pull tractor I ever built, I did it that way. I keyed them on, and I was twisting those shafts. I was breaking keys off. It was unbelievable how much torque there is on this jack shaft. So halfway through the season, I guess I had one that was just about to break off, so I just welded it on because I had no other choice at the time. And I decided that that's how I was going to do it. I ended up twisting one of the shafts one time, and I had to cut it off anyway because I couldn't get the sprockets off the twisted shaft. So I thought, well, if I end up damaging it, I got to cut it off regardless. So that's how I've been doing it ever since. Unfortunately, if you put it together and you decide that your speed is not quite right, you have to cut it off. But that's the price you got to pay. And that's how I've been doing it. So in any event, this goes together like so. We got a flange bearing on each side. That larger sprocket, the chain comes off the motor, the bike motor. So essentially I have two chains here, that chain and then that chain. And that's where I get my speed reduction. It mounts in here. And then that final one the chain comes back all the way back to here to this really large sprocket, which drives my solid axle. Okay? That's how you end up with speed reduction. Because as you can imagine, using a bike engine, this thing was meant to do, 200 mile an hour or whatever they do on the street, but very little torque. So we need to reduce that speed and take all that power that that engine produces and spin these wheels. So that's how you end up with speed reductions. And sometimes it's a gamble. You're just taking a guess. At least the first time I did it, I just took a guess, and I had to make a few modifications, a few changes. And I'm a bit better at it now. I have a fairly good idea of how it goes. This one here is a bit of it's a bit older, this engine. It's a GPZ 1000 out of, it was a Ninja, an 86 Ninja. The first gear in this is fairly low, so I want to speed this up just a little bit and give me that little bit more momentum. Now, I don't want to speed this up too much, because if I do, I can't go backwards. So if my first gear is too high for what us pullers call a tight track, sort of real sticky clay, then I'm in trouble. I can always go up a gear in the bike transmission if need be, but I can't go lower. So I don't want to go too much higher. 1, 2 teeth at the very most. I think 2 might work here, because that one is fairly low geared. In any event, I haven't got one. I'm going to have to order one anyway, so I'm going to prep this. I'm just going to slice this off and knock that shaft out. Same with this one, and then we'll have to move on while I'm waiting for the sprocket to come in. So let's get at it. All right, guys. So I've got that all apart now. Knock those shafts out of the sprockets. Took my bearings off. We've got a bunch of junk shaft here. I got lots of that 1.25 inch shaft, so that's not a problem. Now, as I was saying, I'm gonna have to order the sprocket I need. That is an 18 tooth, number 60 chain. So I'm going to bump that up to 19. So I'm going to have to order that. And while we are waiting for that to come in, we'll leave that. And we are going to move on to the front steering modifications that I need to make. And so all I really need to do here is not quite wide enough. You can see the frame and the tire. That tire turns about yay much, and it's going to hit that frame. Well, it works okay, but some of the places that we go to, you need to be able to turn fairly tight, unfortunately. So I need to widen this out a little bit and get it turning a little bit sharper. Just a little, not too bad. So we're going to carry on with that. Let's go. Okay, everybody, I got it jacked up, the front jacked up here now, so I can show you what I'm dealing with here. It's more prevalent on this side. See, I turn, you see my expansion tank for my radiator? It's very close to hitting. I'm scared it's going to catch that hose. And it does seem like that turns fairly sharp, but I need just a little bit more. A little bit more. The other thing I noticed, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see very well, but in under here, I have this little rack and pinion affair. I bought that from Junior Dragster. I guess the dragster guys use those. And the few of the other pullers that I pull with, or at least one, was using it and he liked it, so I thought I'd give it a try. And it works well, I like it. However, I've mounted it here and it moves. I can't do it right now, but that piece of flat bar that it's mounted on, it rocks. I guess I maybe have too much clearance on the holes, I don't know, but I'm gonna have to drill through that orange part there and put a pin in it. A roll pin, just so it's nice and snug and it doesn't move. When this is sitting on the ground and it has weight on it and you're turning, it makes that whole rack and pinion affair kind of rock a little bit back and forth, which is also part of my problem. So we're gonna fix that. Now, as luck would have it, I left the steering shaft a little long. So the thing I'm gonna do is bring that out to, say, there, and throw a split collar on there to bring that out a little bit, and then one on here to lock it on the other end, so then it can't slide back and forth. But now I'm out that little bit further, and I think that'll solve our problem. It should be fairly painless. And we're gonna give that a try. We're not gonna know till we try it, so we're gonna try that out. I'm gonna set you guys up on the tripod here again, and I'm gonna go to it. All right, guys, I think we got this licked here. So I've extended that out. You see I've got a locking collar there, one on the end. So here's a look from this side. It turns much sharper now. I don't want to go any further than that because I'm real close to that exhaust. I don't imagine that Chinese snowblower tire would last too long if it hit that exhaust. So we're not gonna go any further than that. That should be plenty. Same on the other side. It goes a little bit further, I think. That's all right. This is a pull tractor, guys, and the front tires are basically just a suggestion anyway once you get going. So we're not going to worry too much about that. We're gonna try it. We're not committed. We can move that if we need to. We'll take it for a rip and see what happens, but we're going to have to wait until we get our drive sprocket. We'll be waiting on that. So at the same time, if you can see that there, I threw a pin in, a little roll pin in, and keep that thing from moving, rotating back and forth on me. Well, hopefully that's a little bit more solid now. That was 100% my fault. I kind of installed that in a rush. I rushed a little too much there. So I'm going to call the steering done. So as soon as we get our drive sprocket and put that back together, we can take this for a rip and see what this steering's like. All right, guys, so we're a couple days later here now, but I've got my new sprocket that I ordered, and I've cut a piece of shaft to fit in there for our jack shaft. Now I've just got these sprockets on here spinning loose for now, so we can line them up later. So we need to slip that in and install the bearings so that that's solid in there before we bother with alignment. And I've taken the liberty of taking the seat pan off here so you can see how this goes a little bit better. So I'll set you up on the tripod and I'll slip that in and bolt it up, and then I'll show you how I align the chains quick and dirty. All right, let's go. All right, guys, I got that mounted. And now what I've done, hopefully you can see that all right. Those two sprockets are still floating on the shaft. They're not welded, they're not, see how it just rotates on the shaft? So what I do is I just make a few revolutions here. And that sprocket, because it's floating on there, will center itself. Now, ideally, what you'd want to do is run a straight edge between both sprocket faces and make sure you got it lined up this way and this way. Now, I did do that originally when I built this, but now that it's all together, it's difficult to get a straight edge in here. Not so much this one, but this one over here, it's impossible to get a straight edge in there. because it's so close to the frame here. And that, you've got that there. It's very difficult. I've tried it before and it's not that easy. Now I suppose you could use one of those small laser level affairs. You may not have that. I find, I've done this in the past many times and this works okay. Just make a few rotations and it'll center itself. And then get it in a spot where you can get at the set screw and pinch the set screw up. All right, and that'll keep it locked there for you. Bring it around. And now I'm rotating the other one, okay? So now we'll move on to the other one. And that's how I get it centered up. Once I get the set screws pinched up, then I rotate it a bunch more. You'll see here now I've got the set screws on both sprockets tightened up because I'm in the position I want to be. And now I rotate it. And both of them are rotating, going in the direction that it's going to be traveling in most of the time. Just to make sure I don't have any binding. And it feels good. Now, normally, if I were building this for the first time, I would probably fire it up and run it, let the engine spin it, so I can stand back and look at it and make sure I don't have any binding or wandering. But since I've already built this and I already know that I'm good, I'm not going to bother with that this time. So now those set screws are tight on that shaft and the whole thing is turning. And I'm happy with where we're at. I don't feel any binding. If you get binding, that's going to get hot. It's going to wear. It's going to be hard to push because you do have to push these a fair bit, being that they don't have reverse. But I'm satisfied with what I see here. So now all there is left, in my case, is to weld those on. And then it's good to go. Now it's worth a quick mention here, guys, before I get welding. I have disconnected the negative off the battery. Reason being, this has electronic ignition, and electronics is real sensitive to arcing and such things, so it's always a good idea to do that if you're going to do any welding. I know a lot of guys don't worry about it, you know, as long as they keep their ground cable close to where they're working, and in a lot of cases that is true. I just like to be safe because those electronic ignition boxes for these engines are pretty pricey, and it only takes a few seconds here to disconnect the battery, and then you know you're not going to arc out and bugger anything up. So let's get set up and we'll weld these two sprockets on. Alrighty guys, now she's welded up. Welded it up there, welded it up there. I tensioned it up where it should be. Now it's worth mentioning here, in a case like this, if you're running one of these bike engines, you do not want the chain too tight. That one there, that I'm happy with that. And this one over here, same thing. If the chain is too tight, the transmission has trouble going into gear all the way. It feels like it went in, but as soon as you put a load on it, it'll pop out of gear. Learned that one the hard way. So you don't want it too tight. Most people, me included, have a tendency to make roller chains too tight. And in this setup here, you want it a little looser than what you might normally do on something else. But anyway, we're good there, and that's it. We're ready. I'm gonna button this back up. I'm gonna throw you guys back up on the tripod and put this back together real quick. I don't want to bore you with all that, and then we'll take it outside for a tear and check how that speed works and check the steering that we did. Well, let's go. Alright guys, the sun's out. You guys ready to go for a rip on this weapon and see how we made out with it? I say we do it. Let's go. Beauty. So far, so good, guys. I'm not sure if you caught that, but when we were going up the hill and I stuffed it, and it started bogging. It's running out of fuel. We were lucky to make it here. My driveway is quite steep, so when we started going up the incline, it was running low on fuel. Not to mention the fact it was a little cold. It's quite cold out today, and these bike engines hate the cold. They need warmed up. Anyway, the steering felt good. I was able to steer nice and sharp. So I'm happy about that. It's a fair bit quicker than it was. We'll have to see how that works. We won't know till we got the sled behind it whether we did a good job there or not. So we're going to put that one to bed for now. This is just a quick look inside my other building where I keep most of my pulling stuff. There's my other pull machine. My broken one over there. My diesel over there. A bunch of my lawn stuff. Lawnmower. Whatnot. Anyhow. Alright guys, I'm going to call that a wrap for Bob. Felt good. Steering felt good. Everything was cool. I'm going to have to wait now until January for our indoor pull to try it out. As I said, it's very difficult to tell whether that speed's going to be okay until I'm hooked to the sled and under load. I think we're going to be fine, but we'll find out. Now, as I said before, if you want to see Bob do some pulling, head on over to my other YouTube channel, H&S Pulling. There's lots of footage on there of Bob taking the sled for a ride. Then maybe you can decide for yourself whether I did a good job or not. So before I let you go, if you like the video, hit the thumbs up. It really helps out the channel. And if you haven't done so already, consider subscribing. It only takes a second and doesn't cost you a dime. So thanks for hanging out with me, guys. And until next time, we'll catch you later.